Okay, we're recording. Today is Tuesday, September 27th, 2016, and we are interviewing Rick Lyons at the Illinois State Library. Mr. Lyons is 62 years old, having been born on March 28, 1954. My name is Catherine Douxa, and I will be the interviewer. Stacy Wilson will be the court reporter for this interview. Mr. Lyons, would you please state for the recording which war and branch of the armed services you participated in?
Okay. I was in the Navy from 1981 to 1989. During that time, the Beirut conflict took place.
Great. And if I recall correctly, you said you were not in the non-combatant.
I was in a non-combatant squadron. I was in Antarctic Development Squadron 6, also known as VXE6. I worked on ski-equipped C-130 Hercules transport planes, home based in Point Mugu, California. And every October we deployed to Christchurch, New Zealand, and Williams Field, Antarctica. We supported National Science Foundation scientists, resupplying Antarctic bases and transporting scientists and equipment throughout the continent wherever they needed to go.
Were you a mechanic, sir?
I was an aviation electrician. I worked on all the electrical systems on the plane.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
There's a lot of wires on a plane. We maintain everything from the lights to the navigation systems, compasses, inertial navigation, all the flight instruments, kept them flying for the pilots.
Were the pilots Navy pilots?
Yes, everyone in my squadron was Navy.
Could you talk about starting with your age, approximate age? What prompted you to enter service? What your life was like before entering the military? Were you in high school? Were you married? Did you have children?
I'm single, no kids. I graduated from high school in '72. My initial plan was to join the Navy out of high school, but that was right at the end of the Vietnam War. The military was not a popular thing amongst a lot of people, and my brother got out of the Army late in '71, and I let him talk me out of it. So I did a few odd jobs, worked on some farms, little construction work. Then I went to work in a factory, building heating and cooling units. Did that for 8 years, and basically got tired of being a robot running a machine. That's what it is day after day, and decided I needed to get out of there. So I joined the Navy and went to boot camp October of '81, Great Lakes, which everyone refers to as Great Mistakes. Spent 8 weeks there for boot camp, left, swore I'd never go back. Went to Memphis, Tennessee, to Memphis Naval Air Station. Had schools there for aviation fundamentals, basic electricity and electronics, then the Navy's A school, which is for aviation electrician. Then in June of '82, I joined my squadron in California, and in October of that year, made my first deployment. When I got off the plane in Williams Field, which is right outside of McMurdo, it was 35 below. But it was a bright sunshine day. It didn't feel cold to me. And the first sight I saw when I got off the plane was Mount Erebus, which was an active volcano. You don't think of volcanoes that far south, but it was. It advanced, it erupts from minor eruptions from time to time. But my first deployment, I was in what they call the First Lieutenant Division, where you do whatever job they need you to do. I was a duty driver most of the time, transporting pilots, supplies, mail, whatever. Then I would go down to the electrical shop on my off time and work some, just get a little experience. Second deployment started, I worked on the planes. That's all I did, was worked on the planes. We worked 12-hour shifts. The hardest part initially was getting used to 24 hours of sunlight, because in the summer it doesn't get dark. And a couple of weeks it bothered me. Now I can sleep at high noon, doesn't bother me. It got used to it. It was interesting though, you could tell approximately what time it was by where the sun, what mountain range the sun was over. It was pretty close. But there's wildlife, get penguins to watch, entertaining. And in the late summer, when the ice would break up, you can see killer whales, pilot whales, and a few others.
Are you comfortable talking about your experience in boot camp? And I realize that goes back, but I'd like to investigate some of the areas that you spoke about.
Boot camp? Boot camp to me was, well, it's, there's a lot of physical fitness naturally, but to me it was more of a head game. Play their game, eyes and ears open, mouth shut, do what they tell you, and keep a straight face on the outside while I'm laughing behind. But I said boot camp wasn't a real problem. Of course, I was a lot older than most of them. So I was 27 and the rest of them were like 18 and 19. So I was Pop's grandpa, and anyone that had a problem, left a girlfriend behind, they were coming to me to talk, wanting advice. So I played that role in boot camp.
Did that role continue as you moved?
Not as much. A little bit when I was in A school because there were some older people there, but once I got to the squadron, that really didn't happen anymore.
Okay. Were people more your age and
yeah,
and they shared more of your interest at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yes, more people in the same age group or a little bit older.
When you entered the Navy, did you tell them what your interests were? How did you end up doing what you're doing?
When I went to the AP station in St. Louis for a physical and talked to the counselors to select something, they asked me what I wanted to do, and I just, at that time, just anything aviation. I wanted to work on planes. And electrician was an opening that they had, so I ended up with that.
And have you used that skill since being out of the military?
I haven't worked on planes since I got out, but just the knowledge, yes, I've used that for other electrical work, because electrical is electrical, whether it's an airplane or whatever.
Right, like maybe you can fix the lights in the ceiling.
I've done a little bit of that.
Could you talk about what it was like to work with the NSF? Talk about what it was like to support the military's support of the non-military people that you were there to work with.
I didn't have a lot of interaction with the civilians myself. Naturally the air crews and the higher ups did, but I didn't have that much interaction with them. They just told me, pilots come back or the air crew and tell us what needed to be fixed, and we fixed it.
What was your day-to-day life like?
I'll say we worked 12 hours. Of course, down there, it didn't matter whether days or nights, they all looked the same, but then off for 12. Generally, we would work 6 days a week. Sometimes we didn't get a day off for a while, but off hours, the club was open quite a bit. Maybe a little more alcohol than we should have, and when you're in a place like that, sometimes that's all you've got. But we had TV. We had a lot of movies on VHS that we could watch, and there was a gym. McMurdo it's a small city. It had about everything that we needed to keep ourselves entertained. Of course, this was before internet too, and before cell phones and stuff. If we wanted to make a phone call, we had to go over to Scott Base, which is New Zealand base, and a 10-minute phone call was like $50.
Wow.
So you didn't do that very often. We could also make phone calls with ham radio. They would contact someone they had people in California that they would get on the ham radio, then they would make a collect call to whoever you wanted to talk to. but you had to talk just like you were on the radio. You had to say over after when you were done, just like you were say using the radio and not the telephone.
How did your thinking change over the time that you were in the military? Did it change?
Not a lot. I think the fact that I went in as an older age than a lot of them made a difference. I think maybe a little more disciplined for a lot of things. Changed the way I wear my hair. I used to have hair down my shoulder. It didn't bother me a bit. Now if it touches my ear, it's got to go.
That's really funny. What was your experience like as you moved through the process? I realized that you weren't, you didn't see combat. It was, what I hear you saying is that it was really like a day-to-day job with a lot of hours.
A lot of hours, but there was also some tense moments, you know, plane getting ready to launch on a mission and something breaks and it's got to be fixed right now. So you had to go out there, troubleshoot it, find out what the problem was, get the part down from supply. And, you know, there was some dangers there too, because we worked around a lot of dangerous equipment, you know, revolving propellers when the engines are running. But everybody did a great job. You know, did what they were supposed to. They did it by the rules, kept everybody safe, and we never had a serious accident 4 years I was in the squadron.
So if I were a young person to approach you about going into the service, what would you say to me?
I would give you the positives, the negatives, and let you make your decision. I don't tell anyone they should, and I don't tell anyone they shouldn't. I just give them my experiences and let them decide, because I'm not going to be the one to say yes or no, you should or shouldn't.
So pretend like one of a young person coming to you and asking you, should I enter the military? Could you talk about what you would say? Like give some greater detail about.
It's not like a job where if you go to work at McDonald's and you work there a day and say, okay, I don't like this, I quit. It's a little bit harder in the military. When you sign on the dotted line and hold your hand up and say, I do, you're pretty much there. So you have to do what they tell you and when they tell you. But to say I would do it again. I would not hesitate to go back and do it again.
Do you miss it?
I miss the people a lot, and I miss some of the jobs, but there's things I miss, some I don't. You know, the traveling, being stuck in out of the way places for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I spent 10 weeks in Hawaii one time. One of our planes had a engine explode during a refueling stop and did a lot of damage to the wing, and I was on the crew that put it back together.
That must have been, I'm thinking that I would feel good if they asked me to go to Hawaii for 10 weeks.
It was all right about the first 3 weeks, but Hawaii is so commercialized and expensive that by the time we were done, we just wanted to get it done and get out of there.
Did you stay on a military base there also?
Yes, Barbers Point Naval Air Station.
And what was that like compared to where you were in Antarctica?
A lot warmer, but I'm not much for big cities to start with, and that's what a lot of where we were, you know, the Honolulu area, and it's not the kind of place I like. I like rural areas better.
Okay.
But that was one thing I liked about Christchurch, New Zealand. Even though it's a city, it's like a rural area. Very friendly people, lots of things to do there, botanical gardens. We didn't get to do a lot of traveling, but it was a beautiful city.
But it wasn't necessarily all a military city.
Not military per se, because technically we were under the control of the National Science Foundation. We worked for them, even though we were Navy. We had a place at the airport, hangar and barracks and stuff, but it was more like just a city and not a military base, even though we still had to follow the military rules.
So I see that you volunteer with the, could you talk about your volunteer work now?
I'm with my World War II reenacting group. It's the 325 Glider Infantry Regiment of the 82nd Airborne. We try to recreate what they did to honor the veterans who fought. That's our main goal, is to honor them, their sacrifices.
So talk about that some more. Talk about if we were standing outside right now and I approached you about what the equipment and the other items that were available for viewing out there, would you talk about some of that?
We have most of the equipment down there is original World War II equipment that we display, and some of it we carry, some of it just for display. A lot of what we use at reenactments is reproduction. Like my uniform, it's reproduction, but it's an exact copy of what they wore. The companies that make it go to great lengths to, they use original uniforms to make the copies, so it'll look authentic. We go to reenactments. We just went to one in Rockford last weekend. Recreate the battles. There's Germans, Russians, Italian, Polish troops there, and say we have simulated battles out on the field with tanks and
Real tanks?
real tanks.
Talk about that.
Well, last June at Reenactment, my first time I finally got to ride on a Sherman tank. I'd always wanted to and never had the opportunity, but we did up there, and we got to ride the tank into battle. They're big, loud, and not very comfortable, but it was exciting.
Do you use real ammunition or?
We use blanks. As they sound real, but we use for safety purposes. Naturally, they're just blank. There's powder charges.
And how long does a reenactment last?
A typical battle will only last about 20 or 30 minutes.
Because you're playing.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm. There's a plan of how the battle's going to be and predetermine who's going to win that battle. But usually the plans go out the window as soon as the battle starts. But we try to follow some guidelines,
Do people get competitive?
Oh yes, very.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, that's why the plan goes out the window as soon as the battle starts, and it may not end the way that it's supposed to. Like on Saturday, the Germans were supposed to win this battle, but they didn't counterattack when they were supposed to, so we just took advantage of it and pushed on down the field and beat them.
Is it like a football game?
Kind of.
It is. Could you talk about your role in that?
Oh, well, we don't have gliders naturally, but we do like the glider troops would have. Once they hit the ground, they're like an infantry. We work with the other units and just do what we can to shoot Germans.
Are the people who are Germans, are they really German or?
A few of them
Just
are,
take
but most of them
Germans.
are Americans. Just portray. Maybe they have German ancestry, or that's the side they want to fight for. Some of them I don't know why they do that. Personally, I couldn't wear a German uniform. My grandfather was in the Navy in World War II and an LST crewman, and landed at among other places, Omaha Beach on D-Day. And if I put a German uniform on, he would come back and haunt me.
Was that part of your family history, knowing that story?
That, yes, and my father fought in the Pacific in the Army in World War II.
So you have a long history of military service in your
Yes,
family.
my mom's brother was in the Navy for 30-some years. Some other family members were in the Navy. So my brother in the Army and my dad was in the Army.
Can you talk about some of the symbolism of your uniform?
This is the 82nd Airborne patch. The AA stands for All-American. When the 82nd was formed during World War I, it was just a regular infantry division. But someone looked at the roster and noticed that there was someone from, at least one person from all 48 states. And that's where the All-American came from. Then during World War II, with paratroopers and gliders, it was changed to an airborne division. Then the cap, that's the combined logo for paratroopers and gliders. Then I don't know if you can see that insignia very well, but that's called a DUI, designated unit identification insignia, and that's for the 325th. It's I can't remember the name, but that's some of it's from the French. I can't remember what that's called, but then let's go. That's the motto for the division.
Is there more on your?
No, that's all I have on this one.
Okay. Do you wear your dog tags?
Oh, yes.
Could you talk about what's on them?
Well, this is an early war version that has your name, your blood type, religion, and something they did early in the war was they put the next of kin's name and address on it. But then they realized that if the enemy got a hold of the dog tags, they would have that family member's name and address. So in early '43, they stopped doing that. But I have my dad's dog tags, and it has his mother's name and address on them.
Do they still require people to wear dog tags?
I think they do. I did. I quit wearing mine because I had one on a keychain, but I realized my serial number was my social security number. So it's not wise to carry that.
Right.
Now these, I made up a serial number.
Oh, okay. Okay. And they're manufactured to go with the uniform that you're wearing now.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Serial numbers, well, if you were regular Army, started with a 1, and the second number was for a state or a region, which is 6, which include Illinois. Then the rest of them were just sequential to just on and, for everybody. Everybody was different.
Was there a lot of military pride in your family?
I think so.
Could you talk about that?
Well, my dad and my grandfather both, neither one would talk much about it. If Dad talked about things, he usually talked about other people, but he rarely talked about himself. So I didn't get to hear a lot of his stories. Not what I wish I could have.
Do you think that might be PTSD related, or?
It could be.
Yeah.
I know one thing, Dad would never eat Spam after he got out of the Army. Said he ate so much of that when he was in New Guinea and the Philippines, he would never touch it again.
Yeah. What was your life like when you were growing up?
Oh, I grew up in a time when you didn't need parental supervision all day. We'd get up in our summertime, when you're not going to school, we'd get up, go out and play baseball. We'd be all over town and knew by sundown we needed to be home. And completely different than now. So, because we had, no crime, no one bothered you, and if you did something wrong, it got home before you did. I think everybody was your parent back then, so you knew to behave yourself.
Did your father's military service did you notice any effects of his service on his relationship with you and your family?
I don't know if it really made that much difference or not.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see anything that, I can directly relate to his military service. I know both my parents were very caring, loving, and did everything they could to support us and raise us.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
Brother and 2 sisters.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you may have said this. I believe you said that your one brother talked you out of.
Yeah, he talked me. I'll let him talk me out of going in initially out of high school. Well, that was one of the things too. But
Did other members of your brothers? Did other your brothers and sisters also serve in the military?
no.
Did you have other cousins that went in?
Yeah, I had some cousins and uncles that did.
Did you run into them during your time in the service?
Not during, no.
Yeah. So were any of you in all at the same time?
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I did have 2 cousins that were in the Navy at the same time. But the only time I ran into them was when my grandfather died and we were at the funeral. But we were in uniform and were pallbearers for him. And he was buried in a Navy uniform too.
I'm sorry to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
not that he was. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lived a full life. He was 90, so.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 3+ minutes left. Is there, in order for this conversation to be posted on the VA's website, we have to go to 30 minutes.
Okay.
So can you think of some other information that would be helpful?
Well, I said earlier that when I got out of boot camp, I left Great Lakes and swore I'd never go back.
Right.
Well, when it came time to transfer out of my squadron, I found out my dad had cancer. And I wanted something closer to home so I could get back to see him more. So where did I go? Great Lakes. So I went out to Little Creek, Virginia for instructor school, then went back to Great Lakes for 3 years instructor duty, taught leadership and management classes it's called the 6YO program. Machinist mates and boiler technicians had a program that if they enlisted for 6 years, they got the rank of E4 out of schools. And the 2 weeks leadership class was the last part of it. So I taught that for 3 years.
I've been to Great America there. Was Great America there when you were?
Yes, I never got it. I saw it. I could see the tower from the base, but I never made it up there to go to there.
Okay. Did you enjoy teaching?
Yes, I did. It was interesting.
Talk about some of the highlights of that for you.
Those gave me a chance to relate some of my experiences to the students that going out to the fleet for the first time, and maybe something that would give them a little insight to help them in their careers.
Did any of them come back to you and say, "Hey, Mr. Lyons, thank you for that information"? And
no, unfortunately, I never heard from any of them. But I think a lot of them just once they get out of school, they forget all that. But hopefully, I gave them some help.
I'm sure you did. You seem like you are very knowledgeable in a lot of areas of your life.
Well, I try to. I think the experiences I had even before the Navy and my time in my squadron gave me a lot of insight to a lot of things.
Yeah. Is there anything else? We have another minute. Is there anything else you can think of?
Oh. One of the highlights too was I got to go to the South Pole. So I ran around the world. Only took about 5 seconds. So I had people asking, how far have you ever run? I said, I ran around the world. Hit all 24 time zones. But when you run around the pole, but it did. You hit every time zone when you're at the pole. And it was 40 below zero that night.
Wow. Was there ice everywhere?
At the South Pole, it's
Yeah.
a little over 9,000 feet thick.
Oh my
Now,
God.
McMurdo it's on Ross Island. There is rock, it's an actual island, and referred to the people that live in McMurdo as the dirt people, and told them to keep their dirt up there and not bring it down to the ice and get it dirty.
Was there a lot of ice sports going on? Did you participate in hockey? And
On Thanksgiving, we had the annual Penguin Bowl festivities. We had a parade, had a king and queen contest, and a lot of times there was more men than women in the queen contest, but then we had a football game between the military and the civilians.
outside?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the summertime down there, it would get up to around 40 degrees. If the sun was shining and no wind, you'd go outside in shirt sleeves, no problem. If it got cloudy or windy, then you better have your coat. And sometimes the wind, it would get up above hurricane strength. And that blowing snow, you didn't go outside much. You couldn't see that far in front of your face.
Did you wear those big parkas with the?
Mm-hmm. We had them, but I didn't wear mine that much, or not the hood.
Right.
I wore the coats on, but we always carried our cold weather gear with us just in case the weather did get bad, because it could change in 5 minutes. It could go from sunshine into you can't see in just a matter of minutes.
Wow, it sounds fascinating.
It was great. I'd love to go back.
So you haven't been back since?
I haven't been back since I left my squadron in '86, and that was the last time I was in New Zealand or Antarctica.
So that's 20 years ago.
It was
30
years.
30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But I still stay in touch with a lot of them. Facebook has been wonderful for that. And I go to reunions about every 2 years where I meet up with them, and we have a great time.
Good for you. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for agreeing to have this conversation with us this morning.
Quite all right.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay, great.